YouTube, what is going on? I hope your day is going well. Today we are going to rate, in my opinion, from best to worst, or however you want to say it, a tier list for Kingdom Rush Alliance. I have played the game completely. I have almost 30 hours on the game. I've done every achievement, and I have thoroughly enjoyed the game. There are some people that I don't enjoy, and that's what we're here to base opinion on. But if you missed those, make sure to check out the Twitch down below and come watch some streams. So, with that, let's begin. I do not remember all the names, so I might just call them by what they are. I haven't played the game in a little bit until the new DLC comes out on October 3rd, which I'm very excited for. So, if I'm not mistaken, it's Warhead, I believe his name is. I'll probably have a little text box that says the name or something like that. But Warhead. I thought Warhead was a useful character. Um, I had some, and I've gotten all the heroes to level 10. I played them in, like, from all scales, so I kind of know how they work, pretty much. So, I think Warhead is a very useful character. So, Warhead, Warhammer, what do you want to call him? I think his skills were very useful. I think he was very good at just holding enemies down. The fact that he could have two actual armor, and then he had around 400 HP, I believe, was some good enough damage. And his abilities were actually pretty nice for area attacks and such. I think he struggles a little bit on he can't attack air. And he has an ability which I don't like, where he jumps up in the air and lands on another enemy, leaving that enemy to either just run off or to kind of kill, or he kills that enemy and then he'll jump over to the next one, which is fine. But the problem is, if you drag him over into another lane where there's, say, let's say 5 enemies, he'll jump to whichever one he can, which is cool. But I don't know. I was not a fan of that ability. But otherwise, I think he's a very useful person. And when he works with the second hero, I don't think he does as well as some other people perform. So I would say he's more of a useful. He's a good tank, though. So next, I don't know why this order's like this. We're just going to go to a different spot. I don't remember his name. His name starts with a V, I believe. He's the first hero that you get in the game. I think he's average. His abilities are okay. He's mainly a ranged person, but he also does have an attack stance, which is cool. It's not as strong as his range. I will say his piercing ability, I don't remember if it's just true damage or not, but that is very useful and very targetive to just shoot enemies with. He's not the fastest, but he can attack air. So it kind of helps out a little bit. But with his abilities and comparing to some heroes and grouping of together, working together with other heroes, he's not the greatest, I would say, at either. Who we have next? Who is the next person? We have, what was her name? I don't remember the name. But I think she's very strong. And I even said this when I was streaming the game, and I love this character. This character is awesome. She has a shield that she builds off of enemies around her. So if you have like 5 enemies, she gets a total of like almost a 500 shield. She has a heavy true damage attack. Her ultimate summons a bodyguard, pretty much, that has 2 ticks of armor, almost 400 health, and does decent damage, a good holding grudge, kind of like Warhead. What else? She does, I will say, she does lack in the department of movement speed and not attacking air, but she can hold her own on the ground. All of her abilities are so good. Even her true damage ones are actually good. They're not like ticking or anything. They're straight up true damage, which is why I think she's very strong for just killing people on the floor and killing enemies all around the floor. And while the towers can shoot everything in the air, she can hold her own on the ground. Excuse me. So that's why I think she is a very strong character. Next, I think it was Naru. Naru, I believe her name was. I think she's a very useful character. She can travel pretty fast, which is great. You always need a fast traveling character. You need at least one hero that can travel fast in case of emergencies. I think Her magical damage, she does do magical, so I think that's a bonus too. There are a lot of enemies that include armor and stuff as you get later into the stories of the campaign. Her abilities are actually pretty nice. The healing for herself is actually really useful, and the ultimate is probably my favorite part of her kit. The fact that she could put an ultimate downward is true. I believe it was either physical or it was true. I can't remember, but I believe it's true ticking damage, which is really, really good in this game. And it slows everyone down in the path and it grows to a huge amount. So I think she's very useful, but I don't think she's as strong. I get the healing factor and she's a range, but she has like no health and like hardly any armor. So you have to be very cautious with her, and if you're not paying attention, one slip up and she will pretty much die in like 2 seconds. Even in the later stages, you have to always keep your eye on her, or else she'll go on cooldown. So that's why I think she's a little bit worse, but she can hit air too, which is a bonus. But I think certain abilities are better. Next, we have what was his name? I don't remember his name either. Taurus, right? I believe it's Taurus. I think he's a little bit above average. A little bit more than him, of course. He's the slowest person in the game by far. He can't hit air. His abilities are slightly better than I believe the other, but he just doesn't do enough. He's really tanky. He can hold one unit still. And he can call 2 other bodyguards to hold some others still, which is fantastic. That's great. More bodies in the lane to hold enemies away. That's what we want. So towers can attack and stuff, which is great. But at the same time, you have to do enough damage output, and he just doesn't do that. He's a tanky person, but doesn't do a lot of damage. His ultimate is probably his best part, where he drops that ball and chain, or wrecking ball, down. And it stuns and does a ton of damage, and it's true damage too, so it's fantastic. But I don't, just because he's the slowest person, slowest hero, plus his abilities just completely are not as good as others, as well as I do want to say a critic of his tower ability, where he builds a tower. If you sit him in one spot and he builds because he'll build towers every once in a while. And when he does, he backs up every time. So that means you got to click him and move him back to the original spot. I've had him walk off of the stage map close to. Like out of the lane. He's walked off of the lane into another area because he just kept building towers and kept going backwards. And then by the time I moved him up, so many enemies passed that it was kind of like, all right, second hero, let's get to work. So I don't think he works very well with others as well either, but I still think he is better. Next, we have... Ooh, who should we do? We have... Oh, let's talk about Anya. Anya is super strong. She might be somehow overpowered. I want to say she's overpowered. We already know who's... But we'll get to those. But I think she's on the brink of overpowered. One, she has a good front damage attack if enemies get close. She has a blade swirl around that does damage, which is good. She's mainly a long shot, does a lot of damage, so that's good. She can travel fast. She can shoot air. Her abilities are cool. One of them even sticks them in place just to do the little attack. She has very good abilities, very good damage. Health and strong armor-wise aren't. It's kind of there, but it's not that bad. Her ultimate is really good too. The fact that she makes an old reference to Frontiers of Dante. And how he slows everyone in the area, plus does a little bit of damage. I don't remember if it's true or physical or magical. I don't remember. But I think she's very strong on the brink of overpowered. Next, let's go. What was your name? Onrochi? Something like that? I didn't mind. I think he's up here with Warhead. Not a bad character. Very slow. One of the slowest in the game as well. Has good damage. Has pretty good abilities, I'd say. I don't remember if he hits air. I never really paid attention to that too much. I probably should have. I think he lacks a little bit. Just because of the movement speed, I'm not 100% sure if he hits air all the time. His main ability... Not his main ability. His ultimate ability, I mean... is I don't like it. It's too slow. The fact that you call it over and it takes time for it to activate, the enemies could be gone by then. There's no one holding them. And then it's a waste. So I think just because of that, and he has no movement speed, and the fact that I don't even remember that he hits air, or at least I don't remember hitting air. So I think he's a little bit below Warhammer for that. Next we have let's go. I believe Broden. Broden. I think this guy's a very strong character, stronger than her. His abilities are good. He does good damage. He's a flying unit, so he hits air, he hits ground. He does have some problems sometimes hitting air, but that's all air units. So he hits both. He's fast, not as quick as some others, but he does have very nice abilities. He has good damage, and his ultimate ability is good too. The fact that he can summon 2 phoenixes down just to swoop in consistently and do a lot of damage to an enemy target is really nice. So I think he's very strong because of that. I don't think he beats Anya in any way. I just think she does more than he does and can hit air better. Because I've had times where I've lost lives because he didn't shoot the air people that were right in front of him, and that's just because of how the AI works, I believe. Next we have I always called him Grimace. If I could put Grimace somewhere, jokingly, he would go and need buff. But actually, he should probably, after playing him for a little while, because he was a hero that took a very long time to get up there a little bit, I put him... Is he above? No, he's in the useful tier for sure. I think he might be slightly more useful than her. His movement speed is not bad. It's about the same as Naru. His abilities are good. This one particular ability where he puts his hand in the floor and he does these spikes that come out of the ground. That does a lot of true damage. It almost one-shots squishies even on the hardest of levels in the tier 3 area. It just annihilates them. Like half health, 75% of your HP gone. And that ability alone pretty much puts him here, I think. Also, when he gets really low, he turns into this monster that heals a lot, but I don't think he heals enough. If he healed a little bit more so he could last a little bit longer, at least so he turns back into his other stage, then I think it would be better. Because when he fights bigger, stronger enemies, he lacks. Excuse me. I think he lacks very much in those departments. He's good at fighting smaller units and taking them out, leaving the second hero to basically kill off the bigger units, but he struggles a little bit with that. He has no armor, but he has a decent amount of health. Not the greatest, not the worst. His ultimate's actually quite nice. It slows everybody on the map, which is sick. But it also leaves a giant puddle, so they're extra slowed in the puddle as well. It does ticking damage a little bit too, but I do not think he's as strong as these current 3. Alright, so now we're down to these 3. Okay, so here's where I'm going to have to think a lot, because I don't remember her name. It's like Threerin or something close to that. She's strong, she's not overpowered, but she definitely belongs somewhere in here. I'm going to put her below Anya, I think. She's strong because her abilities are great. She can teleport across the map, it's instant, so she has some of the best mobility in the game. She can hit air. She's a ground unit. She might not have a ton of health, but she can take a few punches, though. She can take, like, some of the bigger people, bigger troops and bigger enemies can hit her, like, 5 times, and I think she might be just, like, on the brink of death. But she can at least last enough for you to be able to move her in time. Her abilities are really good damage. I'm trying to think. The shield casting that she does on troops, as well as I believe she does the shield casting. I believe she's the one that does it, if I'm not mistaken. And as well as she buffs the range of the towers, which is probably the best part of her whole kit. The fact that she can buff every tower on the map to make their range longer is so much better. It's so useful for so many different things. Sally, I don't believe she does. If I'm not mistaken, she doesn't do it to barracks, which sucks. And her ultimate is so nice to have. Sometimes it can be situational, but you just have to watch how the battlefield's going. Because you have her ultimate, you trap them. You trap a certain amount. It's usually about 5 of them, I believe, into little space balls, and they take damage while they're in those. But they're off the field. No one can hit them. If they were able to be hit, I think she could be stronger than Anya. But since they don't, they just take a little bit of damage and come back out. I think it can be useful, especially on tier 3 areas where you fight the ones that spit out after they die. They spit out the little glob guys. If you put them in when they're low HP, they won't spit them out when they come back out. So it's very nice if you don't want to deal with those. Or if you need to kill like an enemy that's approaching and both of your teleports are down at the end because you've leveled it up enough, you can basically put that on that enemy and hopefully it'll kill them, or you put another hero there so they can get distracted by it, whatever. So I don't think she's stronger than Anya, but I think she's high strong, very. Now, here we go. Who could it be? I wonder. So, we're gonna run into the 2 most overpowered. I don't remember your name. I don't remember either of their names. Man, I'm not good at names. So, let's start here. I think, arguably, he could be better. It could be like this. I think, arguably, of playing them both so much, I think it's kind of a hard decision because, I mean, the abilities that this dragon has, the fact that it has a lane, it has a shield for allies in the area, or it has a true damage strike that does a lot of damage. It basically cuts the vials in tier 3 area, the vial creatures, and like their health in half. And his ultimate is insanely, maybe the best, I think is the best ult in the game, to where it strikes one area, but that one area, everybody will die. Because those troops do a true damage, like I don't remember the number, but they just can kill an enemy, so it can do like 600 damage to multiple units standing there. And that's what you need. Even though it's one area, that's 600 damage or so on one high level and high health troop. Like, that's so good. And the damage is nice. It does magical damage. The dragon does magical damage. And also, it has armor. I believe tier 2 armor on a dragon, which is crazy to me. And has good health, too. So it's very survivable against, like, the spitter, the acid spitters, or other range units in the game. Cosmere. There you go, Cosmere. I remember the name now. Cosmere, I see everywhere. Cosmere is better. But I don't know. He does physical damage. He has like 1 tier armor, and he has around the same health. So that's cool. He's a dragon too. His comparing ultimate-wise here, I don't think he's bad. And I think the reign of like the shard of the true damage is really good, and the fact that it can go in different areas as well. But I do not think it's as strong as that ultimate, as well as the abilities are good. The slow, the shards that go everywhere. He can hold his own in the lane. I think he's very strong. But like I said, this is a very close matchup between them. I think the ultimate. Because Cosmere, I think, has better abilities, except for the ultimate. I do like a magical damage, because there's a lot of armored units on the field, so I think that is better for the dragon to shine. But Cosmere doesn't have that; he just has to hit him with whatever he's got, right? But his abilities are so much better, but the ultimate's not better, and he doesn't have magical damage. But I think just because of those abilities alone, and a lot of them do true damage, I think he's going to be slightly better. Just slightly better. But I don't think any of them need a buff. If I could say a buff, it would probably be these two. on terms of movement and damage, and same thing for him. Maybe just slight to his abilities, I'd say, and maybe more when he attacks, maybe more damage there. But otherwise, this is my official Kingdom Rush Alliance hero tier list. Hooray! Now, we move on to the other one that hopefully is not as bad. Okay, perfect. We move on to towers. Now, these are all the towers from Kingdom Rush Alliance. Now, how is this one going to work? So, we just did heroes, and now we're doing towers. So, let's hop right into it. I don't remember all the names. I remember the ones of the few that I use the most. So, excuse me, let's do Archer. I think this is a good A tier. It's a beginning tower. It's very strong. It does a lot of damage, surprisingly. Well, that shouldn't be surprisingly, but... well, it should be surprising. It's a beginning tower. But the fact that it scales well, it shoots fast, it does good damage. Both abilities for it are good, too. To where the Griffin, I wouldn't really upgrade. There's no point in wasting 200 in that when you could just put it into the Necromancer and be 10 times better, which we'll get to that. I would put it into the armor breaking one, where it breaks our armor, as well as it does a lot of damage, a lot of good physical damage. So I think, and it's cheaper. This tower is pretty cheap, so I put it on high A. Paladins, I think are better. I don't think they're broken, but I think they're really good. Super cheap tower, one of the cheapest towers in the game. Meant to hold a lane. These 3 militia paladins can hold down a lane for so long. The fact that they have such good armor, such good health, a decent amount of damage. On top of that, when you get to their upgrades, they can heal / become invincible while the enemy is still attacking them, as well as have an upgraded person to where it helps the other paladins do more damage, and if there's other units on the ground, example, another barracks, or maybe necromancer skeletons, then it buffs them as well. So I think that's very strong, 2 very strong abilities, as well as the tower is very cheap and very, very good. So 2 starting towers are actually, like, goated for this season. Not season, jeez, game. There you go. Archmage. I think it's A. The reason why I think it's better than Archer, just because it's a mage tower, and this game is really focusing hard on mage towers, just like some other games are. The tower is not overly expensive, but it is a little bit. It does a lot of good damage. It can do even more if you have a second one next to it and upgrade it down the 2 upgrades it has. An insta-kill, which is 300 plus 150 for the other 2 ticks, just for a cooldown. And that damage is very nice for killing bosses really quick, or even killing an enemy as fast as possible. Or a mini-boss. And then you have the damage upgrade, which it scales up to 20% more damage upgrade to nearby towers. Which is amazing, by the way. But I don't think it's better than Paladins, because Paladins can hold down the lane pretty well, and they're one of the best barracks units in the game. So that's why I think they're a little bit better. Because there's other mage towers that are better than this particular mage tower. There's better ones. So, moving on. Tri-Cannon, I believe. Put it in D. I think it's the worst tower in the game. This tower is so expensive. The abilities are so garbage. I don't like the chili one. It doesn't even do that much. And then the multi-shooter cannons everywhere. It just doesn't. It doesn't hit the spots you need it to. Sometimes it does, and you're like, "Wow, that's great," but it's so expensive, and it's just not worth it. There's so many better towers you could build there. So I don't want to say a lot about that one. That's bad. That's bad. Oh, I don't remember the name, but how do I want it? Let's put it in. I might move some stuff around, but for now we're gonna leave it there. I think this tower is B, and the reason why, the damage is not very great. It's not overly expensive. It's in the mid-range of expense. about like I think close to 110 or whatever to upgrade, and of course it scales up. The damage is not overly great, but I believe it weakens them maybe the auto attack because they get like a little thing around them, as well as the two abilities on it are great. They're really good. The fact that you can summon little like fairies to heal units on the ground, so in their like example, paladins are like half HP and they're fighting for their lives. He can pop out fairies and heal them as they're fighting and holding down the ground. As well as it has an ability where it roots enemies in position, just like Kingdom Rush 1, where the Archer Tower could do the same. But in this case, he just roots like a certain amount of enemies for like a very long time. I believe it's like 6 seconds or 8, possibly. That's a long time to root an enemy to the floor while doing tick damage. I think the abilities alone make him in B tier, but I don't think his damage is here. Damage should be probably down here to maybe low C. Imps. I like imps, but not as much as with that. Imps are very good. It's more, I think, a little bit more expensive. At least when you try to finalize your leveling up, I think the final level to level up is close to 250, I believe. The abilities on it are fantastic, though. The fact that an imp can come out, attack an enemy, and then when it explodes, it does a good amount of true damage, like 50 true damage or so. And they spawn quite quickly, surprisingly. And then the other one is the bigger imp that comes out and walks just down the lane and does a lot of damage when it explodes, as well as has a good amount of HP, a good amount of damage. I think it's a very strong tower. I think the thing that lacks it is the expense that it gives. I think this tower is too expensive for what it is, but that completely makes sense since it is pretty good, I'd say. But it's not better than Paladins if you're talking a Barracks Troop. Now we have the Ballista. I like the Ballista. It's one of my normal towers that I have in my wheel, so all the time, and I think it's better than the Archer Tower. Reason why, I believe they're about the same expense, to maybe the Ballista just a little bit more. The Ballista does do a great amount of damage. It is a little slower, but it does do a lot of damage. A lot of good, just normal damage. Both abilities for it. So the last shot, it does extra damage, plus stuns the target, which is a little bit expensive an ability for what it is, but it does its job and it does really good. The other ability I didn't get too much because when I use it at least, it slowed them down, which was great, but then it didn't do tick damage, even though it says on the thing it did, but it didn't, so maybe that was like a bug or something. Hopefully they can fix or look at. But I think this tower is better than the Archer. But it's definitely not better than these two. I'd rather buy these and, I'd rather buy these than buy the Ballista. And of course, I might change some stuff a little bit. Flamethrower. Put them in C. Flamethrower is good, but it's not that great. It's very expensive for upgrades. It doesn't hit air unless air flies over it as it's shooting the flames, so that's rare. And it does pretty good damage to ground troops in an area. The abilities, though, I think lack. They don't do enough, especially the little Ray, whatever the Ray one is. I don't remember what that's specifically called. But I think his abilities are more on the weaker side, and the fact that he can't even, hit. I mean, I know it's an artillery tower. I guess you consider it that way, but it's just so expensive. It's not worth it. It's definitely not worth it to have something like this. I don't have much to say about it. I think it's just too expensive for what it is. Shotgun guys, that's what I call them. Let's go. Shotgunners. Where do I want to put shotgunners? Shotgunners can go in. No, this one's going to be a big opinion. I think they go in C. Yeah, I think they go in C. They're in the mid expenses of money cost to upgrade. There's only 2 of them, and they don't have a lot of HP. They do decent damage because they have shotguns. That makes sense. But they don't have a lot of HP, so they're not good at fighting on ground. You basically buy them to only sit up in the air and just shoot people like a free tower. But what's the point in doing that when you can actually buy a good tower and just shoot them? But they can last not very long because they don't have a lot of health. Sure, they might have like one tick of armor, but that's not gonna matter when you only have like 100 to 200 HP. That's not gonna matter. Over an overflow of enemies consistently happening. There's no point in that at all. And the upgrades for it are not very great. Like, I understand some of it, but I don't think it's overly great. I think it could be better. So that's why they belong down there. And next, Elven. Mage Tower, not that bad. I think it belongs down here. Low B. The tower's expenses are not terrible. I believe it was more on the expensive side. I didn't use his tower too much. I only used it once or twice. But I don't like its shooting ability. The fact that it shoots like 5, but it doesn't hit a consistent target. It shoots it on multiple targets, which means it's not going to do as much damage. It's going to lower that damage because it's hitting multiple targets. So I don't like that. As well as the abilities for it. A teleport backwards is nice. And there was, I believe, a bug for that. I don't know if that's still out there or not. That you could teleport them backwards in the animation of them teleporting. You could sell the tower and the units automatically disappear, which is a glitch. But I hope they fix that. And her other ability is like the extra shooting stuff after killing an enemy, which is not bad, but it doesn't do enough in my opinion. So I don't think she's better. In terms of damage, she is better. But in terms of ability, she's definitely not better, in my opinion. Than our other Mage Tower here. We're going to skip Necromancer for now. Let's go Spear Thrower. Let's go... right here. Now, I didn't like this. I thought this tower was going to be sick. I thought it was going to be great. 1, doesn't hit air. 2, the range is okay. 3, it does some damage, but not enough for my liking. The abilities are not very good. It summons 1 strong troop in the lane. That just is not the strongest. And the other one is just not really that great in general. But I do like the effect that when he throws a beer at them, they get weaker in terms of attack. And not in terms of armor, not in terms of health, just attack. If I'm not mistaken on that. So I don't think that's very useful, I guess you could say. Dune people. The Dune people. The Sand people. Let's put them... Yeah. No. There you go. I don't like them. They don't do any damage. And I've seen people say they do a ton of damage. They do no damage compared to this Archer Tower that I believe is cheaper or relatively the same price. They do not do enough damage, and their abilities are not good either. The money thing with one of them, with the disc thing giving you extra money and stuff, it's not really useful. It doesn't give you a lot of extra money, which I understand that, but it just doesn't. It's just not a good tower in general, but it is, I think, better than these 3. I actually do think that Flamethrower is actually more useful, so we're gonna move him up. Next, we have Grim Wraiths. I used this tower once or twice. I'm not a fan of this tower. I think I'm gonna throw him in C tier as well. This tower is cool for barracks. It can teleport anywhere around the map, which is sick. I've never seen it before in any Kingdom Rush game. It's cool. Don't get me wrong, but let me tell you something. Too expensive for barracks. It's in the high of turns of expense, as well as the troops that come out of it are not very strong, and the abilities are okay, I'd say. I don't think this tower is very strong at all. Why waste all your money into this tower and be like, oh no, I only have to build, or you know what? I only have to build 1 barracks, and it's going to be the Grim Race, and I'm just going to teleport in between the 2 spots. Well, what happens if the two spots get overflowed? Then what are you going to do? You can't have them both there. So why not just build two Paladin barracks that are one of the cheapest towers in the game to hold off some people while your towers do damage instead of teleporting back and forth consistently? And plus, there's only 2 troops compared to the Imp that consistently spawns, and compared to Paladins that have 3, and also Shotgunners there's only 2. That's another reason. Next. Oh, jeez. Okay. I always see this argued too. Everyone says the Eldritch, I believe is how you say the name, Chandler, is the best tower in the game. I understand it completely. But I'm going to tell you something. It's not the best tower in the game. The Necromancer is 100% the best tower in the game. It's very close. But I think the Necromancer is the best tower in the game. Here's why. We'll start with Eldritch. The Chandler is good. We'll start with the Eldritch Chandler. This tower is very good. Don't get me wrong. It's a laser type tower that sits on one target and will just laser their health. Tick, 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 tick. Very high damage. A little bit more on the expensive side. But it does very high damage. The abilities are good. I'm not a fan of Polymorph. The fact that he can turn an enemy into a sheep. Problem is, I remember my old days of using Polymorph back in Kingdom Rush 1, where I turned people to sheep, and the sheep just ran past everything, and none of my towers wanted to focus it. And I lost some lives because of that, and that made me really mad. That's why I don't buy the Polymorph. And also, it's $200 to buy the Polymorph. When you instead buy something, you can buy the Death Rider from the Necromancer. And the other ability is actually one of the better abilities of the game. The fact that you can shoot the laser and channel the 3 other units and do 70% of the damage that you're doing to the main guy to the other 3 is really nice. But I don't think it's as good as the Necromancer. But this tower is very strong. I see that it's the best tower. But in my opinion, I don't think it's the best tower. I think it's second. It's definitely in my role of the 5, 6 towers that I use. But Necromancer is always in my top use. 1, it's a reference to Kingdom Rush Frontiers. That's number 1. Comparing prices, Necromancer is better on terms of pricing. Necromancer can also store 4 times its shots, meaning an auto attack can have times 3 or times 4 on it because it can save up 4 skulls, which are his auto attacks normally. You shoot them all 4 at once to one enemy that walks into his range. The range is good. The damage is actually not that bad. It's not as high as the Archmage or Archwizard. But, I don't know. Who cares about that, right? The damage is a little bit worse than that, which is fine, and a little bit less than the Eldritch. But, at the same time, you know what it does? It summons lane troops with skeletons. And skeletons are actually surprisingly pretty tanky. Surprisingly. You want to think so. The only thing I dislike is that they can't summon 2 big skeletons. I've had it before where they summon a big skeleton and then like a little bit later they summon another one and the old one dies. I hate that you can't have 2. But they're actually quite tanky with the 2 abilities it has. The Totem, in which the Totem buffs the skeleton's damage and nerfs the enemies that are in it, as well as the auto attack from the Necromancer also weakens it. Like, it's just, and the debuff is very nice to it. I think it just makes them weaker. I'm not sure what it takes away from them exactly. That ability I think is 120 every time, and that's not really that expensive. And then you get the other ability, which I think is one of the best abilities in the game. The fact that you get a Death Rider. Now, in Kingdom Rush Frontiers, you would summon a Death Rider, and he would be not stationary. He can move around like a barracks troop in the lane and power up your skeletons. Instead, they broke them in half and kind of put the Totem there to weaken enemies and buff the skeletons, as well as the Death Rider be separate. Now, the Death Rider is not a target anymore. What he does is you summon him, and he runs down the entire lane and does, I believe, 70 damage at the start or so. Like 50 to 70. But he hits every troop for true damage. Goes through all armor effects. True damage. But then, if you upgrade it immediately after, he'll summon again. It's an instant reset cooldown. So you can go summon the Death Rider. He runs down the lane. As soon as he's done, upgrade it again. You get a second Death Rider that has the more damage. Upgrade it one more time. You have the last Death Rider that does the max amount of damage it can do. It's an ability that comes out quite quick. It's an ability at max level. Does 150 true damage to everybody in the entire lane. So if you just have a map of Necromancers and you all have Death Riders, nothing will get past the first, half of the map. It's not possible. The damage is too much. It's overpowered. It's one of the best abilities in the game. 100%. So you have that ability. You have a debuff. Double debuff, actually. Excuse me. You have a double debuff from the Necromancer and the Totem. You have lane troops to hold them for a second while you put reinforcements there, while you use ability there, so they're not just running down the lane. Even if it's for a split second, time matters a lot in this game. The tower, and it's cheaper than the Eldritch Chandler. It's just an overall better tower. And I understand why the Chandler is somewhat better, but it's not. So I think that's gonna, I don't think I have to change any of these. I think these are all pretty good for what they are. So I think I will leave it as it is. So, once again, here are the heroes of what I think need to be changed, and here are the towers in which what I think, or whatever you want to say. Now, this is all opinion based. This is all for my opinion. I hope you enjoyed the video. I certainly enjoyed playing the game. Make sure you check out some streams so you're not missing any great qualities and great content. And I will see you all next time. Later.